All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Welcome, everyone. My name is Will. You can call me Contraband, and this is the Contraband Wagon, where we're changing the conversation on race. Thank you so much for joining us for this 42nd Conversation Series event. That's right. Here on the Contraband Wagon, we have 2-hour live conversations with our guests about race, which is exactly what we're going to do today. But before I introduce our guest for the day, I'm going to explain a little bit about how you can get involved with the Contraband Wagon. All you have to do is go to my website, www.thecontrabandwagon.com, click the submit application button, and I will get back to you via email with a link where you can sign up for a 30-minute pre-interview Zoom conference. There, we'll have a 30-minute chat about what we might discuss here live on the show, and if we both agree, then you'll be on the show. That's all it takes. Anyone can do it. There are no limitations. Please go ahead and sign up. And also, we also offer open racism discussion groups that you can sign up for virtually. These are round-robin discussions on race that occur with 10 people or less via Zoom. They're not recorded. They're simply a safe space that I've created for people to ask questions or make comments about race, where they won't feel judged, but they can get some feedback from other people. So check it out. They've been very successful. All of it is free. None of it costs you anything. All you need to do is sign up. All right. So without any further delay, our guest for today is a now 2-time appearer on the Contraband Wagon. And this time he comes to us being now an advisory board member of an organization, the name of which fully escapes me right now, but I know that the acronym is FAIR. Something like Intolerance Against Race. I don't know. He'll tell us. But yeah, that's our guest for today. It's Angel Eduardo. He's back here, writer, artist, musician, designer. We're happy to have him. Glad he's taken the time. So without any further delay, welcome to the Contraband Wagon, Angel. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you very much, Will. It's great to be here. It's very nice to talk to you. I appreciate the invite.
What's that organization name, man? Help me out with that.
It's the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism, FAIR.
Thank you so much. You know, there's so many of these organizations that spring up. I'm constantly reading names, and it's hard to keep it all straight. So thank you.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I think that there are at least a couple of other organizations named FAIR, but just standing for different things. So
yeah, that is correct. Because when I looked it up, and I did look this up, I promise, but this was not the first one that came up. So I was like, oh, interesting. Anyway. All right, well, let's jump right in and talk a little bit about what you've been writing recently in regards to race. Like, talk about some of the pieces that you've created, you know, and just start right there.
Sure. Well, it's been a little bit. I think when we had our conversation, I had only maybe done 1 or 2 podcast video type things. So it's hard to remember what I've done in the meantime, just because the past year and a half, almost 2 years, have been pretty wild. I've written probably more in the last 12 months than I have in my entire life combined. Just I keep getting these opportunities, and people keep asking me what I think about things, and I'm just doing my best to make sense as best that I can, to learn as best I can, to contribute, to the discourse as best I can. And race happens to be one of those topics that we keep getting back to. I've evolved a lot on my thoughts on race, especially since we spoke. I've become not just anti-racist, but depending on how you define that term, but the way I would define anti-racist, I'm also anti-race. I'm also very much convinced at this point that part of the project must be to reject the concept itself. My most recent piece for Newsweek kind of gets into this sort of thing. It talks about a few things, but one of the main takeaways was just this notion that, you can't dismantle the the master's house with the master's tools, and the ultimate master's tool is race itself. And I think that we can do small and subtle things that are, in my opinion, consequential to dissociate ourselves from the concept, while not pretending that, problems that actually exist don't exist. And that sort of thing. So racism is very, very real, even though the concept of race is not. And problems that are the result of racism exist, even though the concept of race does not, because the belief in race does exist and did exist, and that is extremely consequential. So I've tried to make that distinction as best I can, and to operate with that in mind as best I can. So, just a small way of illustrating that is, whenever I use these racialized terms like white and black, I will use air quotes and I will put them in scare quotes. Just, at the very least, to kind of take one step back from simply reinforcing and reifying them. I think it's an important conceptual thing, at least for me, in order to address these issues and do it in a way that I feel is in accordance with the way that I view this stuff. I think that, I was very inspired by the book by Barbara and Karen Fields, Racecraft. And, the whole point of that book is kind of, we inadvertently reify the concepts in the ways that we talk about it and react to it and deal with it. And so, those are my subtle ways of trying to take one step back from, being the fish who doesn't know he's wet kind of thing. So that's part of it. And also just, one of the main things that I've written since we spoke is I coined this term star manning to just describe a rhetorical tool, a way of engaging with people that I think will be more productive, because it centers compassion, and it centers refusing to dehumanize, even if one is being dehumanized. And fellow FAIR advisor Daryl Davis is a huge inspiration for that sort of thing. Just trying your best to understand where people are coming from and connecting with where people are coming from, even if you disagree with them and even if you think they're totally wrong. So yeah, that's the main things that I've been trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's really clear. Do you think that people are getting that message? Do you think that people are perceiving your writings in the way that you just described? And what have you noticed in terms of like the commentary and the kind of reaction?
Well, I have to say that the vast majority of the responses that I've gotten to all the things that I've written have been positive and supportive. And kind, even when people had disagreements, even when people wanted to push back, which I appreciate. I appreciate people pushing back. I don't want to be wrong for a second longer than is necessary. So, the way that I approach any kind of disagreement is, it's already a victory, because whether I'm right or wrong, I don't really care about that.
Let's put aside right and wrong for a second here, Angel, and just talk about communication and perception, because I guess, so what you just described here, to me, sounds very personal and individual to you. That you've kind of made a choice to live authentically within your truth and your vision for how race operates. And part of that is to make sure that when you're, using vocabulary like white and black, these categories that are imaginary, you make sure that people know that you think that they're imaginary, right? And taking that step, creating that distance, you're hoping, you think that that's consequential. First of all, I'll say that probably most people disagree about the consequential nature of what you're talking about there. But I thought it was interesting that you kind of threw in that you thought it was consequential, because obviously you've thought about that then, because you wouldn't have said that. So
Well,
why
of
don't you
course.
tell us? Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came to the conclusion that taking that step back was consequential, if it's outside of what you've already said? Because I think you've already made an argument for it, right? Which is that for yourself personally to live authentically, you need to take that step to separate yourself, since you've come to this understanding of race and the fallacious nature of the categories.
Right. Well, you know, I mean, I think most people probably would agree with, you know, race as a social construct, right? Most people say that. Most people agree with that. And I agree with it also. And I just think that we should try to act more like it's a social construct. We should try to acknowledge that it's a social construct instead of some kind of biological reality or, you know, anything like that. And I think that, you know, one way to do that is to just clearly illustrate it, right? So if we were talking about, you know, Greek mythology, for example, which is also, you know, stuff people made up, we wouldn't say, you know, Kronos created the universe, or I don't know if that's the right one, but you know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't say that. We would say the story is, you know, that Zeus did this, or in this story, this mythological story, you know, Hera did this and whatever. So we describe it in this way that is kind of detached by necessity, right? And we wouldn't want to make the mistake of giving people the impression that we believe these things, that we believe in Zeus, and that we believe that Zeus actually did whatever in the story. And I just think my approach is to try to treat race in the same way, because there are a lot of ways in which, you know, again, informed by this book, Racecraft, we inadvertently make the concepts real in our minds and in the way we engage with them. A lot of it is in the way that we talk about it. So I thought that I made that kind of connection in my head, and I just decided I'm gonna try my best to do it this way, so that I can make sure that I'm keeping myself on the right, you know, what I consider the right sort of level with it. I'm approaching it and looking at it in a similar way as I would Greek mythology or something. But also to signal to other people, like, hey, you know, there's something to think about here. Because part of my enterprise here is to try to communicate with people and communicate my ideas with people and what I'm thinking and how I'm thinking. Not to say that, you know, I know everything, not at all, but this is where I'm at and this is what I'm trying to communicate. And, you know, hopefully that kind of kicks some door open to dialogue that maybe wouldn't have been open before, or
I
would
don't
have
know.
been
Let's
open.
see right now. Let's find out.